Hey you guys, we are wrapping up this semester, but we have a couple more things to discuss. This week we are talking about Chapter 17. We are really looking at behavioral change and decision making. This is an important part of the action stage when clients are deciding what is going to change in my life as a result of going through this helping experience. I know we're wrapping up. I hope you're staying with the readings because this is all really important stuff and a lot of you are very action oriented, so I think this will be very natural and enjoyable for a lot of you. So in the text, the author kind of highlights these different action tasks. She breaks them down a little bit differently, but the first one is improving coping skills. In the book, the author talks more about helping clients de-stress, helping them relax. I think that's really similar to coping skills, so that's what I'm calling it. The next is behavioral changes. Now, really, this is actually broken down into two subtasks, and that's kind of behavioral changes that are intrapersonal or interpersonal. Interpersonal behavioral changes are about kind of internal behaviors that you have to change and that are about issues that are really just things that are within your control. Interpersonal are kind of changes between people, between relationships, or systems. But these are things that are kind of out of the person's total control. And then the final action task is decision making. So we're going to kind of go over things quickly. I encourage you to do the reading, but I just wanted to hit the highlights in here. So the first thing I talked about is remembering that an important action task within the action stage is coping. Helping clients cope, helping them relax. Again, she talks a bit more about this in the book, but I just wanted to highlight that change is stressful. So when clients are ready to change, they probably are going to be experiencing a little bit of increased anxiety, a little bit of increased tension. So talk to your clients about relaxing. What does that look like for them? Encourage them to increase their mindfulness skills. We've talked about mindfulness in this class. It's about being aware of your thoughts, your feelings, just kind of noticing them so that you can learn more about yourself and how you react. And just encouraging them to do other positive coping behaviors. There are so many, and they can really vary by person. You should try to come up with a plan that is tailored to your client, but explore with them how they're feeling about these changes and really try to make sure that you're encouraging them to relax and do positive coping skills during this time. For me, I know that big changes are always stressful. When I moved from North Carolina to Ohio, that was a pretty big change. I was realizing I was going to have to make new friends and I would be in a new place. And so for me, making sure that I'm getting extra cuddle time with my kittens was important. Making sure that I'm eating foods that I like is important. Talking to my family, talking to my partner about how I'm feeling, all that kind of stuff. So just remember, change is stressful and be sure to make space and time to explore that with your client. Next, like I said, we're going to break down behavioral changes into two kind of categories. The first is intrapersonal and the second is interpersonal. So I wanted to give examples of each and quickly go through the models and the steps outlined in the text. So the first is intrapersonal. So these are things kind of that can be controlled by the client. So we're going to look at Michelle, who's a female. She's 31, and she's unhappy with her job as a fashion sales associate. She needs help with intrapersonal changes, so she needs to figure out how to change her behaviors to get a job that she likes. Now, if her issue was that she wanted to absolutely stay at her job and she was unhappy there because she didn't get along with her coworkers or her boss, that would actually be an interpersonal behavioral change. But she's really just trying to figure out what to do for herself or her career path, so that makes it intrapersonal. She can be in control of that. Then, for interpersonal issues, we're going to look at Sanjay. Sanjay is a male, he's 27, and he's unhappy with his relationships, particularly romantic ones, but his friendships as well. He just really doesn't feel like he knows how to show up in them and how to ask for what he wants and share who he is, that kind of thing. So he might have some kind of assertiveness issues, and so he needs help with interpersonal changes because he can change his behaviors, but it's also going to be about how the other people receive them, and he can't control other people's responses to him. So let's look at this a little bit further. So before I go through all of these, I just want to note that you will hopefully see themes across kind of the different models that we're going to quickly look at, so just pay attention to those themes. So again, we're looking at steps for intrapersonal behavioral change, helping clients change behaviors in situations where they're really in control of most of the factors. So the first step is always to clarify the specific problem. So for Michelle, she's unhappy with her job, but you will still need to use those exploration insight skills. Where'd that go? Those open-ended questions, reflections, summarizations to really get at the root of what's going on. So does she want to try and stay at her job? Does she want to move somewhere else? And after talking to Michelle for a while, you realize that she really just isn't happy being a sales associate. She works in fashion, she works at a department store, and she just doesn't enjoy it, and she thinks that a career change is best for her. And then the second is the client actually ready for the change? How is the idea of action for this problem sound to the client? Oftentimes, people know that they want to change, but again, change is scary. So they may know that they want to change, but they might not be ready to do so. So you use those exploration and insight skills to find out where they are. So these are questions like, what are the benefits of changing? What are the benefits of not changing? How would changing make you feel? What keeps you from changing? Those kinds of questions. And remember that clients don't have to be ready, and if they're not ready to change now, that's okay. You can still kind of explore what possible options would be. When do they get to that point? We don't want to force someone to do something they don't want to do. But just as is important to realize what's the problem, also ask how ready are they to make the change to that problem. Next, we have assessing previous change attempts and resources. So has the client tried to change before? What are the resources they have? So for Michelle, has she tried to switch jobs before? Would she need to go back to school if she wants to do a new career path? What does her personal support system look like? What does her financial support system look like? How feasible would that change be right now? What are all those kind of little pieces? Have they tried to change before, and what are their resources? We can imagine for Michelle that's going to be important. If she tries to switch jobs are where we get money, right? So looking at those options and possibilities. So some questions that you could ask are, what works that you've tried before? How do others respond to you about this problem? Or what does your support system look like? So for Michelle, maybe she has a boyfriend and he's very supportive of her changing, but he's worried about her struggling financially if she changes, but he also knows that she's not happy. Her family could be very supportive. She could kind of be in an okay financial spot. She has some money saved, but she isn't sure that she wants to totally give up her job. She just needs to have a plan first. So fourth is, after kind of discussing about what the problem is and if they feel ready to change and what resources they have, it's good to then clarify or reconceptualize the problem. After you've spent some time exploring with the client, they might kind of see the issue a little bit differently or more clearly. So after discussing it, Michelle might realize that she really wants to go back to school for business. Talking to you, she realized that she enjoys kind of the business end of what she does, but she actually just doesn't feel challenged enough. She wants bigger opportunities, so she thinks that getting an MBA, let's say she has a bachelor's, if she goes back and get a master's in business, that will open up more of the doors for her that she wants. So she's reconceptualized the problem to realize, I need another degree. It's not just, I don't like my job. So next are generating options together. And it's really important in this stage of generating options that you guys generate as many options as possible. You're still not telling the client what to do. We don't want you to do that. But just throwing out different ideas that maybe they haven't thought of and encouraging them to think of new ideas. What are all the options on the table? So, when could Michelle go back to school? Could she go back now? Could she go back in 6 months? What time of the calendar year is it for her to do that? Does she have the means to do so now? Does she need to save up money? Does she need to look for scholarships? Would family maybe help support her? Should she go to school part-time, full-time? Does she need to keep her job for a while? Or is she so unhappy with it that she needs to quit now? So those are all the things that you can put on the table and discuss together. And after you've done that, you help the client choose an option or options. So in this case, Michelle has to decide what she's going to do about her job and about going back to school. So she decides that she's going to keep her job for now, but begin looking for programs to apply to. And when you're helping guide clients towards choosing an option, again, it's their choice, but you want to encourage them to identify options that are specific, so they know exactly what that looks like that they're going towards, realistic, it's possible, it's within their means, and it's also consistent with their values. We don't want to encourage clients to do things that go against their values, such as if you were to try and encourage her to stay with her job and never leave it, and she wouldn't be satisfied or fulfill her potential, you wouldn't really be helping her pick an option that is consistent with what she wants and needs and feels and values. So help them choose an option or options. Next, determine reinforcers. So this is going to look different with every kind of situation or client. These are really, reinforcers are the ways that clients are going to continue to motivate and reward themselves throughout the process. So Michelle wants to make this change because she'll get a new career path. That's the huge reward. But along the way, you might discuss with Michelle, it's going to be stressful applying to all those schools. I know when I have to gather up personal information and send it out to people, it's like a hellscape of a process. I get so stressed out. You have to call the schools for your transcript and letters of recommendations. So Michelle agrees that she's going to have to practice extra self-care when she feels stressed because she is taking on more stress in this process. So with the helper, with this client, you might need to really identify what is that for you. So she's going to go on extra walks. She's going to make sure that she's going to check in with her family and friends a lot about how this process is going as a way to reinforce her ability to carry through this behavior change. 8. Then you want to really problem solve about implementing the action. So with every, behavior change or action that someone chooses, there are going to be roadblocks, right? There are going to be problems, challenges, new things to deal with. So you really want to understand how and when will the client try these new behaviors and what problems could arise. So Michelle knows that she's going to have to keep her school search a secret, that she could get fired if they find out. So she knows that's going to be stressful. So planning on that stress and talking about it and identifying it, that is going to be hard at times. It's also going to be extra time researching programs and gathering application materials. So she's going to have to kind of shift her work schedule around, maybe not her work, but how she does home tasks, etc. So helping her problem solve for how she's going to meet these challenges. And then lastly, you want to assign homework. So in helping, homework is this concept of giving your clients little goals or things to do to help them work towards their bigger goals. And so the helper might ask Michelle to research a few general programs that she might be interested in and then bring them back to discuss together. Really important when giving homework, again, the point is just to reinforce the idea of baby steps. So encouraging clients to do little tasks to move towards their bigger goals, not encouraging them to go out and do the whole big shebang overnight. You also want to avoid being bossy. We don't want to get pushy here. We're being gentle coaches, giving them little things to try. Maybe a client tries something that doesn't really work out or they don't complete their homework. You don't want to reprimand them. You just want to encourage them to get back out there or try something new. And then lastly, just check on progress and modify assignments. Change is an ongoing process. So if you were to continue to work with Michelle, that might, she could have a lot of changes. She could quickly find a program that she likes and start applying. She could change her mind altogether. She could decide she loves her job. She could decide that she has to quit it immediately. So you just want to kind of keep that contact going and stay flexible and modify as needed. So steps for interpersonal behavioral change. Again, this is when you're helping clients deal with changing behaviors in situations where they're not completely in control. And so this is often in interpersonal relationships. And for this one, it's just important to note that behavioral rehearsal is a really useful skill for clients that are hoping to change behaviors and how they respond to external situations. So let's kind of break that down with Sanjay. So if we look and see, first, you want to assess the behavior of concern in a specific situation. So in this case, Sanjay feels like he struggles to have confidence to get to know friends and possible romantic partners that he might be interested in because he lacks self-confidence. He's not happy in his relationships, and he's identified that his self-confidence is really the issue. He doesn't know how to talk about himself or engage others. So he often feels distant or isolated. And helpers should use a lot of exploration and insight skills to ask for detailed information about when and how these feelings impede client goals. So asking Sanjay, when do you notice that you struggle to have confidence? When do you notice that you don't know what to say? And Sanjay shares that in really every situation at work, with his friends, and especially with women that he's interested in, he just doesn't know. He freezes and he worries that like he's not cool enough, so he just shouldn't say anything. And then next, you want to determine the behavioral goals. So he wants to work on having more conversations with people around him to build his confidence. He realizes, and you realize, that he's not going to totally change overnight. He's not going to suddenly become the most confident person in the world, because personal confidence is a process that takes time, and it involves personal awareness and also practicing behaviors. So he just wants to start with just having more conversations and feeling comfortable in starting conversations. So next, you want to generate and evaluate possibilities. So generally, you're want to ask clients like what has worked before, if anything has, and where can they practice these behaviors. So Sanjay kind of notices that it'd be helpful for him to start working on confidence at work. He's started that already in trying to just trust himself and his ideas more. But he'd like to begin kind of these social goals by trying to have at least one conversation with a coworker each day in which he shares something about himself or asks another person more about themselves. One conversation a day, that's a pretty reasonable goal. If Sanjay were saying that he felt like he wanted to start dating a bunch of women and having successful relationships all at once, that might not be realistic. Starting something a little bit slower, a lower goal, makes more sense. So for him, with all of his anxiety, it's going to be helpful if he does it in a place where he already feels some amount of comfort, and for him, that's work. Next, you want to just provide a model, and by that, as a helper, the longer that you're a helper, and especially if you're a helper that works with social situations like me, a counselor, you're going to have a better sense of what things to kind of encourage him towards, like what little things are a good stepping stone. So, like I said before, general ideas are you want to help clients begin with easier behaviors, such as, in Sanjay's case, talking to colleagues, before tackling harder behaviors, such as asking someone out on a date. You might have a client that is pretty confident and is ready to ask someone on a date if this was a similar issue, but they just had more confidence. So it's always about where that client is and what that next step is for them, which is why we spend a lot of time in the exploration stage to have a strong sense of who our clients are before we ever get to making goals for changes. In general, one big thing that we emphasize in the helping relationship is empathy and listening and understanding, particularly clients that are wanting to work on their interpersonal skills. You have a lot to teach them around that. Talking to them about empathy, what you know about listening and understanding other people. You can provide a lot of education on some helpful social skills to clients if that's the kind of situations that you're working with. And then another example is helping clients determine specific behaviors they need to work on, such as practicing assertiveness skills. So, as Sanjay has these conversations with people at work, maybe he starts to realize that he doesn't know how to assert himself when he has a different opinion. So he might talk to you about that in your helping sessions, and you help him determine specifically, like maybe you just need to state what you think more and just leave it at that, and you don't need to explain yourself. This will just be different for every client, but the more that you talk with them and work with them, you'll help kind of define more specific goals within that. Because interpersonal behavioral changes are complex, right? Like, what does it mean to have more confidence? What does it mean to have better conversations? That's going to look so different with every person. So when you're providing a model, you're really helping them parse out the specific pieces for them that are going to be useful. And then fifth is role-playing. That cuts off that word. So role-playing is a really important tool in helping clients with interpersonal changes in their relationships. So the helper and Sanjay could spend time having role-play discussions with the helper playing the role of a coworker or friend, so Sanjay can practice those skills, practice having conversations. And then together you guys can identify things to work on. You could discuss possible changes Sanjay can make, different things he can try, but role-playing is really useful and it helps reduce anxiety on the outside world if you're practicing it within the helping relationship. Oof. And lastly, just assign homework and modify on the basis of experiences. So keep giving that individual little goals to try, little activities to try outside of the helping session, and modify as things go. So maybe after practicing having more conversations with coworkers, Sanjay decides to start sharing more about himself with his friends. It goes well at work, so he'll bring it more into his pre-existing social relationships. Although some of his friends, like Brian, find this new side of Sanjay strange and starts to back away, because Brian has issues with personal relationships as well. Most of Sanjay's friends share how grateful they are to feel emotionally closer to their friend. Sanjay learns more about the specific types of people that he's interested in being around as a result of kind of being himself and being more confident, and what type of people are going to support the type of person he wants to be. So as Sanjay works on being more open and showing who he is, maybe a couple people don't like that person, but other people in his life really like that person, and he realizes those are the people he does need to build relationships with and to explore new things with. So this is very simplistic, but this is a very just rough outline of models for helping clients with behavioral changes. So I just have one more slide, and that's on decision making. And this just looks so different with every client that I won't even go into this too deeply, but I think this is a logical progression that makes sense. Now in the text, they have almost even some of these things are even more like math equations of having clients rate numbers. You're welcome to use that. I don't use that, so these are just the quick kind of guidelines for helping clients make decisions. Why is this important? Well, a lot of clients come to helping because they often have some type of change they want to make, or they might realize they need to make a big decision. Big decisions, clients that I've worked with have included, do I stay in my marriage? Do I go back to school or not? Do I start medication for my depression? The list goes on, all kinds of things. And I think you'll see similarities, like I said, between this and the behavioral change model. So first, when helping clients make decisions are, what are the options? And what are all the options really? Sometimes clients have a myopic, which means like a limited view of what their options are. So just spending time talking with them to understand like what are all the possible options that you could do here. So, for an individual trying to decide whether or not to leave a relationship, you could stay, you could leave, you guys could see other people but stay together, etc., etc., etc. Values clarification. So finding out what's important to the client. What do they need? What do they want? Oftentimes people know that they need to change something, for example, someone wanting to leave a relationship, but do they know why they want to leave the relationship? Maybe they realize that they want someone who is more challenging for them, mentally challenging for them, or someone who's more emotionally available. Oftentimes we'll know that we want to leave the relationship, but we might not know why. So helping them clarify their values of what they're feeling, what they want, what they need, what's important to them. And then weighing the relative importance of values. So what's the most important? In relationships, using that example, people often enjoy having the benefit of having someone there, but they also might not feel satisfied. So is it more important for them to feel like they have someone there, or do they feel like it's worth the risk of letting this relationship go so they could feel more satisfied? And then rating the options. So going back through all the options, now that you've talked about their values and what's important to them and what's most important to them, how do the options stack up now that you've discussed it more? So maybe the client is ready to say, leaving this person sounds scary, but it's probably the healthiest thing for me. Staying with them and seeing other people could actually be the most ideal option if they were interested in that and open to that. And staying in the relationship and not thinking of other options or getting out is the worst idea. So they can kind of rate those. And then they choose something and then evaluate the results. So say that they want, they're just dating and they think, well, why don't I just see if this person is open to us also dating other people? Is that what they thought they'd choose? Maybe they didn't think they'd choose that. And of course, maybe their partner wouldn't be interested in it and they have to choose to end a relationship anyway. But you want to evaluate kind of that choice with them. And then follow up. Have they implemented that decision? How is it going? So this is just that whether or not to be in a relationship is one example, but this is a general framework that you can use to help clients. Nope, I hope you don't see that little email. Go away, little email. That is kind of a general framework. So I hope that you keep this text. I think it's a really good book for later on down the road in your helping careers when you're helping clients with different changes. But I also hope you notice that when we're at a place of helping clients make changes, it's still a very exploratory process. We're still being very respectful of our clients, still asking a lot of open-ended questions, and trying to always respect the relationship. So that is the lecture for this week. Good luck on your final quiz, and see you.